All right, welcome back. We are making our way through Chapter 6 on the skeletal system. Section 6.2 is bone classification. And we will quickly talk about the way that all of the bones in the body are classified. And to begin with, I want you to notice that it's actually fairly simple. There are only 5 major categories in which all of the bones in the body are classified, and they include long bones, short bones, flat bones, irregular bones, and sesamoid bones. And so let's begin with long bones. It's a bit of a misnomer, actually. Most people, I think, would hear long bones, meaning that they must be the longer bones in the body. But in fact, some of these are quite small. What they do share, though, in common is a cylindrical shape. And so even the phalanges, those are the bones of the fingers and the toes, are considered long bones because they have this cylindrical shape in which they are longer than their diameter. And so if it shares that trait of being cylindrical, longer than it is wide, it's going to be considered a long bone. And you can see here that the large bones that you might consider here, femur, that's the upper leg bone, the tibia and the fibula, those are the lower leg bones. The humerus, ulna, and radius, those are the arm bones. But also notice the metatarsals and metacarpals are long bones, as well as the phalanges. So those are all of your examples of long bones. Short bones are essentially going to be a bone that's chunky and cube-like in its shape, where it's approximately as long as it is wide. And these are only found in the wrist and in the ankle. So the carpals and the tarsals are examples of short bones. Flat bones are just as they sound. They are flattened bones. They tend to have a curved shape, and you can find them in your scapula, that's your shoulder bone. You can find them in your pelvis, in the pelvic bones. You can find them in the sternum that overlies the heart, as you know. And also the cranial bones, like the parietal bone, the frontal bone, the occipital bones. Those are considered flat bones. And also, interestingly enough, the ribs. The ribs are also flattened and are examples of flat bones. Next are the irregular bones. The irregular bones are just as they sound. They don't have any particular shape that's easily defined. So they are complex in nature, and they include the vertebrae, which you will learn a lot about the various processes in lab, and also some of the facial bones, like the sphenoid bone and the ethmoid bone, are considered irregular bones. So there are a number of these. They don't have any particular well-defined shape. They are complex in nature. And finally, sesamoid bones. Sesamoid bones are only found embedded in tendons. They tend to be small and kind of shaped like a sesame seed. Now, the largest of these is the patella, the knee bone. And that is actually just a sesame seed shaped bone that is found within the patellar ligament. And so this is just one example. Now, every human has a patella. However, all humans will have other sesamoid bones as well embedded within their tendons, but those tend to vary in size, vary in number, and vary in location. So there's actually quite a lot of variation among sesamoid bones. So if we transition to this image, this illustration shows the categories of bones we just talked about. First of all, the long bones. Here just uses the example of the femur, but remember, even the bones of the hand, the metacarpals, for example, are also considered long bones. But notice that the length is much longer than the diameter. And these, if you look at them in cross-section, are cylindrical. The short bones are only found in the ankle and in the wrist. And this is just an example of the ankle bones. These are short, chunky bones that are about as long as they are wide. And again, only found in the ankle here, the tarsals, or the wrist, the carpals. The irregular bones, here's an example, is just, this is the vertebrae, which it has an irregular shape, all these projections off of it, so there's no easy way to define its shape. Same is true of some of the facial bones, for example, the ethmoid bone and the sphenoid bone. I talked about that. You're going to see those in lab and see how complex in nature that they actually are. And then we have our flattened bones, or flat bones, and they include the sternum here, is a nice example, but also the bones of the pelvis are flattened bones, as well as the bones of the cranium. For example, the frontal bone, the parietal bone, the occipital bones, all good examples of flat bones. The ribs, in case, are also flat bones. And when you see those in laboratory, you're going to get a better idea of why we consider those flat bones. All right, one more piece here before I leave bone classification. I wanted to show you that if you were to go into your visible body apps and pull up the atlas and go to the skeletal system, you can investigate some of these bones yourself. And I just thought this would be important for me to share with you really quickly. What I've done here is I've highlighted one of the flat bones. This is the flat bone of the pelvis. And if you wanted to learn more about it, you can do all kinds of interesting things here with this app. For example, if you want to know what it's defined as, click it open and that will give you a nice definition of this particular bone. It tells you what kinds of things attach to it, what it does, etc. You can also see pathologies if you want. Now, we're not going to be dealing with a lot of pathologies in this class, but if you're interested, certainly click on pathologies and they'll tell you about common fractures, dislocations, different kind of diseases, arthritis that might be related to it, even the effects of rickets, and we talked about rickets earlier in this class. Another interesting thing is you can pull out the details. Now this I want to show you because it is a very valuable piece, and you're going to see it in lab, but it can also assist you in lecture. So if we pull it out, this isolates the bone with all of its various features. And so if we were to take a look and click on one of these features, it'll tell us what each one of these are. This, for example, is the iliac, the anterior superior iliac spine. This is the anterior inferior iliac spine. Watch when I click it and notice it over here is the answer. So up here is anterior superior iliac spine. This is the anterior inferior iliac spine. Here it is, anterior inferior. These are the posterior spines back here. If I turn it around, this is going to be the posterior superior. See, posterior superior iliac spine. And this is the posterior inferior iliac spine down here. Posterior inferior. So this is just a great way to get to know the bone in its normal orientation. And so you can turn it around on the screen and get to know the different portions of that particular bone. You can do this with any bone in the body, and I just thought I would show you that now. If you want to get back to the original, you just hit exit and it brings you back to the original. So we can look at some of the other bones. There's the sesamoid bone. You can see that the patella is embedded in this tendon here, and very important that that's the only place you find sesamoid bones is embedded in tendons. Here are some of the long bones of the hand. These are the phalanges. I didn't get I got a ligament there instead of the bone itself, but if I can click on the bone, there it is, the third phalanx or phalange, and here is the fourth. So these are the various long bones of the hand. Okay, well I'm going to end here, but now you've got a little bit of an understanding of the classification of the bones.